Okay, let's do this guy. There we go. And let's see. You're on, and according to this app, you're on. So that's all good. Okay, here we go. This is going to be another director's commentary. Welcome back. This time, this is actually a bit of an oddball survival expedition for me. This is Argentina. And this, sometimes you'll say of some sort of endeavor, it was doomed from the start. I think that was the situation here. I was led astray a bit in terms of how things are going to be down there. And that tiny bit of being led astray based on enthusiasm for getting me down there to film an episode of Survivorman down in Argentina led ultimately to what I consider to be, I suppose, the only... I still don't really look at any particular Survivorman as, oh man, I blew that one, but unless it was completely my fault. And in this case, it's like, we were really led down a garden path on this one, kind of literally, and it resulted in what eventually happened, which you're about to see. Why don't we just launch right into it? This is Argentina. And I can start it by telling you that this was actually meant to be a 10-day episode. How do we get into the 10-day episode thing? Well, my memory is going on these things, but I believe that it was basically after I'd done the series Beyond Survival. And it was sort of a transition period where, like, how can I give you some more Survivorman? They were asking for more Survivorman and looking for a way to be more efficient in the filming. It's a big process to film these 7 days in the middle of nowhere and come out with a Survivorman episode. So why don't we do 10 days, and then I can split the episodes into 2 5-day sections, which would be 2 separate episodes, 2 episodes, 1 location, more bang for the buck, so to speak. And that was the idea with Norway, which worked. It was the idea with Mexico, which worked. And this was supposed to be the last one of the season. If this is actually based on this guy here, the 20th anniversary kit. So I pulled the DVD right out of this is my 20th anniversary package, which you can buy, by the way. It's full of 76 films, 20 years of my filmmaking. But more on that later. I pulled the DVD from this package, and I see we have it. I think we have it in like season 5. It's sort of like a random episode. We weren't sure what to do with it. It was supposed to be in this season that was filled with 10-day episodes of Survivorman. And Argentina kind of screwed that up. So it became this problem child. Nonetheless, the episode itself you're about to see, we're very, very proud of, and in fact, it became an award winner. Let's watch it.
Tierra del Fuego, Argentina. The barren tail of South America that stretches out to the South Atlantic Sea, inhabited by only one solo South American cowboy, the last gaucho. Its rocky shores have claimed countless lives, pummeled for centuries by high winds and stormy seawaters. European settlers tried to survive here. They didn't last long. Wild horses, wild cattle, and a few derelict buildings are all that's left of their early attempts. This is one of the most extreme places on Earth, and I'm here to survive without food, water, supplies, or safety.
This place is about as desolate as it gets. It's the land of shipwrecks. Skeletons of these ships scattered all up and down this coast. Before the Panama Canal was built, this is where the explorers came.
I'm just going to stop it right there. I think, if I remember correctly, and I've told this story before, and by the way, sometimes you guys get a little pissy when I repeat a story. Don't forget, not everybody sees every single director's commentary, so it's okay to repeat a couple of stories when it's about the Survivorman series in itself. This was the period where, and I tell this story in Mexico, where utilizing drones became a thing. Now, for years, there were no drones to be used. It was really in the domain of just sort of these nerdy people who loved, doing planes and helicopters, and why it wasn't figured out sooner, I don't know. But before Mexico and Norway, and here in Argentina, we had to use helicopters, and very, very expensive. You get 2 to 3 hours. You know, some places could be $20,000 for that, and so it's like $20,000 for 4 shots, because you know the helicopter flies by about 4 different times, and there's your shots for the show. But when the drones came along, and yet nobody was utilizing them for television yet. It was becoming this thing, but nobody was really utilizing them. And I thought, no, this is going to work. And so sure enough, I think this is the last time we used drones with a drone company. And then after that, I got smart and realized, wait a second. And here's the best part of the story, is that after you spending probably, I don't know, I think it was like $3,500 a day on a team of 2 guys that we had to fly out to Mexico and Norway and Argentina. And, you know, they were like the team, the drone team. That they had their heyday for about 3 years there, where we were hiring different people were getting hired like that for drone work. And then I think producers like myself realized, wait a second, how much does the drone cost? It's $5,000. $5,000, eh? And they're charging me $3,500 a day? Okay, well, why don't I just buy the drone and then hire, you know, one of my salaried camera shooters. So I said, go here, learn how to do this. This isn't rocket science. People are getting into this all the time. And the guys that I know that are doing it, they're not rocket scientists. So that's what we then switched to. But this would have been the last episode featuring drone work. Now, I can't remember the name of the company. I'm sure it's on the credits, but these guys were great. They did a wonderful job for us. And it really paid off switching to drones. It's a whole new world. Now, as I said before, drones are ubiquitous. I mean, children get them for Christmas now. It's no big deal. But now my challenge to all filmmakers is, yeah, but how are you using those drones? High and beautiful, high and beautiful, high and beautiful? Boring. Use the drones, man. Start working those drones. My next phase of this is working predominantly with what they call FPV, which is you put on the goggles and you fly the drone. So anyway, we'll get there. Here we go.
Around the tip of South America. This is a place where wild stallions run free. There's even wild cow here, about 2,000 head.
If I'm lucky, shooting a wild calf can be part of my survival here, just as the gauchos survived before me.
I say that if I'm lucky, I'll be able to shoot a wild cow. Oh yeah, that's right. I don't mean filmmaking. I mean actually shoot one. But that became a far more daunting task than I was ready for.
Well, this shoreline is no place for me. Wind's just coming straight in on me. I mean, look at it. Tide's coming in, storm, fog. I'm gonna make my way out of here. Find a spot up on the land. Someplace I can get up, camp up there. It's cold and damp here. This time I'm not here to survive alone. Not in Argentina. No. I'm gonna need a horse. It's gonna be a long journey along this coastline. Without a horse, I don't think it would be survival. I think it'd be just perishing.
So the idea here was, as it often is, what can I make use of that is indicative of being in that particular region? So a canoe in Northern Ontario, Canada, a mountain bike in Arizona, you know. And then, of course, I've set up other scenarios with cars and planes and Jeeps and ATVs. And in this case, yeah, you know, let's do the horse thing. Now, I think I'd already shot. Yes, I had, of course, it was early. I'd already filmed the horse thing in Colorado, but it had been since then. And that was a pretty wonderful experience. This was going to be hell for me.
To land up at the top is nothing but peat bogs. It's very, very difficult travel. The bottom, going along the beach coastline, that's my only answer. But there's some very dangerous capes I have to get around. I've got to time everything with the tide. And if I get caught in between with the high tide coming in, I'll be in serious, serious trouble.
So the reason that this got set up this way, so I can go right into the problem in the first place, that will lead to a serious problem later on. When I had phoned down, emailed down, and had probably back then would have been like Skype meetings, not so much Zoom, with contacts in Argentina, and you know, they sent me lots of photographs, and all of the photographs, all of them, were beautiful sunny days, green grass. When I'd ask them, what's it like in Argentina this time of year? You know, and it's beautiful. It's going to be in the 60 degrees Fahrenheit range and sunny. And so I just kept getting that over and over and over again. So that is more or less what I went down prepared for. On top of that, the topography was all grassland, and they would say the words, grassland. When I got there, and you can do this on Google Maps, you can go right down and look, it looks like, oh, that is going to be pleasant. Turns out, not at all. All of the grassland that was there at the ocean was bog land. You couldn't walk it. You'd sink down 6 feet easily. Boom, just like that. So I was like, wait, well, how do they get it? And that's when I was speaking with the gauchos there, and that's when they were teaching me and showing me that, no, that you've got to use horses, and you've got to go around the cliffs, you've got to utilize the beach, you've got to time the things with the tide. And so I had to change everything really quick before even getting started on this expedition.
So one horse will be my pack horse, carry the horse food. They don't have to go through survival like I do, and my camera gear. Well, it's getting dark. I want to get a move on, try and find some protected area to spend the night. It's going to be a cold one.
Having a second horse helps with carrying my gear, but adds a level of difficulty. Now I have to care for 2 large animals instead of just 1. And even more daunting, I have to control 2 large animals.
And that's really important when it comes to me, because I suck at horses. I've never been good at controlling horses. I'm still a bit intimidated by them. At this point, I could care less if I ever got on a horse again. No offense to everybody's a horse. I love horses. They're beautiful animals. I wish I could enjoy them and ride them and be friends with them and own some. It would be awesome and amazing. My mother-in-law is a big horseback rider, you know, and I envy that. But me, I suck at it. I don't know what it is. I just can't get the vibe of the horses. In Colorado, I struggled quite a bit, and they were really easy horses. The horses they gave me here in Argentina, these guys, they're tough on their horses, which I don't condone, but they are tough on their horses. And I don't know how to do that, you know, and so they gave me what they probably considered were their easiest horses, but you'll see that proved still a big problem later on.
My goal is to find my way to the remnant gaucho cabins, to see if I can successfully hunt in the interior. All along the way, I have to sneak past hundreds of wild bulls with a reputation for aggressive behavior and even attacks. At this point, I've been riding for a few hours before finally coming to the one protected bit of shoreline where I can hunker down for the night. Tomorrow means more riding until I can find a cabin. But for now, I need to prepare for the dark.
Just going to stop it right there. So you notice, this is just a comment on filmmaking. You notice a lot of the sort of more jumbled shots, and you know, those are coming like, you know, from the GoPro that was either on my chest or attached to the saddle. I'm a big fan of that. I often think that documentary filmmakers should think a lot more like, you know, Wes Anderson or Quentin Tarantino, or, you know, just where you're utilizing camera angles that are unexpected. I couldn't, if I were doing some mentoring or doing a course in filmmaking, I wouldn't be able to stress that enough. Stop going with the safe shot. Like right now I'm filming this. This is a safe shot. For the director's commentaries, I kind of just like, let's just do it. But you know what, earlier, this shot down here, now that was actually up and it was at this level, right? And I thought, well, this is just stupid and boring. At least change this shot a bit so it looks a little funkier. So well, let's put it down there. All right, you got a little bit of my knee in the foreground. You can see more of the window, and it just creates a different thing. As for the GoPro in behind here, which you can see me looking at, there's the GoPro shot. That has actually got nothing to do with you guys. That's everything for Luke. That's so Luke can tee up this edit with what's on my actual screen with what you guys actually get to see when we cut to the footage. But back to the camera angle. I just want to say again that I think a lot of times Survivorman, it won the day in terms of being respected as a well-shot film. And I, by the way, tangent, I do consider every single Survivorman episode, I consider as its each and own separate film. I never wanted to be on a conveyor belt of filmmaking. I never considered it so much a series as individual survival expedition films. And I treated each one that way. And that's why you get differences amongst them instead of conveyor belt, cookie cutter television. And utilizing these weird camera angles when, when the camera would fall on the ground and get some sort of crazy angle, Barry Farrell, the editor, would use that because nobody else is going to use that. The other series aren't doing that. They're going for the perfectly composed, shot by a shooter, scene, like shot.
Wiping the lens, that was great too. Wiping the lens, letting the camera find its focus again, and anything that, like, these are, I mean, it's what's happening, and why cut that out? It's real. It's part of the process that you're going through. And the more people saw that, I think it really helped to just make it, it's like, wow, this is a lot to go through. You're not just, you're not just wandering around a field and trying to pick berries. It's pretty hardcore on all levels, not just, having to find food, but actually getting the job done. Because the filmmaking is, that's a whole other level. All these other guys, they'll go out and they can maybe survive and do their little thing, whatever. And if they're not cheating, that's fine. But there's always someone else filming them. And that's a whole other monster of a nightmare to deal with.
And we were like, no, let's just show, and right from the beginning, Survivorman, let's just show the garbled footage and everything. And recently, someone this weekend asked me, about, how I let people know and remind them that I'm really there alone. That's one of the ways, is when I have to grab the camera and I shuffle it like this sort of thing, or I'm wiping the lens because it's full of snow, like in the plane crash episode or so many others. It speaks to you psychologically. Your brain's like, oh yeah, and the dude's really alone. Look, he's got to mess with his camera. So I could go on forever when it comes to filmmaking, and I just want to say again, I encourage that stop using medium safe shots. You're going to film an interview, remove the safety net entirely and shoot only artistic shots. That's the way to work, I think.
That's the downside of traveling with horses, is the tear down at night and the setup in the mornings. Takes my time for sure, but it's a lot easier than traveling in the peat bog on foot. All up top is very wet, very tough going. It would just be brutal trying to get through on foot. So let's hope I hold on to these horses for long enough to get me out of this mess. Well, the sun's going down. The days here are really short. Whatever I've got to do to effect survival, I've got to do between the hours of about 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Otherwise, I sit and wait out the cold night. Hopefully tonight, not too cold. Of course, the benefit of having horses is having horse blankets. Help to keep the chill off me tonight. The plan is that there are gaucho cabins and shelters and huts all along the way here, and other than a night like tonight, I didn't quite make it to one, I'll try to find them, and as I roughly know where they are on the coastline, make my home there, and see if I can get out on the land and what I can catch. That's beautiful. I've walked a ways down the beach here, see if I can see some running streams, but nothing. So it's going to be about 24 hours without water, I guess. Should be able to find some streams further ahead. As rough as it is out here, that's one beautiful sunset.
By the way, just on that back commentary, if you doubt what I say about getting all these weird camera angles and so on, this episode won for best cinematography.
A couple of days ago, it snowed here, heavy. Now, that's something that I don't want. Temperature's probably right at freezing right now. The water still ices over. That's cold enough. It doesn't need to get any colder and snow on me. Actually, this is probably the only little nook, little cranny I can find on this entire coastline right now that's protected from the wind. Wind is everything. If I had to stay in the wind right now, there'd be no sleeping.
And let's repeat that point on a survival side of things. That is an argument that I'm always willing to have. From my experience, wind is the determining factor every time on just how difficult it's going to be. I often will say cold is the worst, and I still stand by that. Cold is the toughest by far to deal with in a survival situation. So where is it the most difficult to survive? Wherever it's cold. But if you bring wind into the scenario, that's the final, no pun intended, that's the final blow. Wind is so piercing, and so at all costs, so to speak, I look for that shelter area that's right out of the wind. If I got to deal with rain, okay, I got to deal with rain. If I got to deal with cold, bugs. But wind just destroys your night every single time.
A lack of sleep has always been my greatest nemesis to survive.
And a lack of sleep. But that's the point. When it's windy, you're not sleeping. It chills you to the bone. And the lack of, see, everything in survival is sort of a cascading thing downhill if you do the wrong thing. You don't allow yourself to stay dry, you don't allow yourself to stay out of the wind. Now you're not sleeping. You're not sleeping, you become basically psychotic.
It's a cold morning, no matter what way you look at it. The sunrise is beautiful, but it's a cold night. Spent most of it shuffling around a lot, getting up to try and get warm. The tide's way down right now. Make for easy traveling. The gauchos, they had a tough time out here. They tried to make a go of it, and they couldn't, because it's very difficult survival. And my first order of business is to try to make it to one of their shelters. Hello.
I always love when my situation allows for this. So a couple of times throughout the making Survivorman, I would know that there'd be a shelter either, well, most of the time it was kind of like out there somewhere in Norway. No, Norway? Sorry. No, Labrador. In Labrador, there was supposed to be survival shelters along the trails, and sure enough, I found one, and it was specifically for survival, so I loved featuring that one. In Norway, that was a lucky find. I was told, well, you could find some cabins up there if you search around, and I found a little old cabin, and that gave me a night or two, I think. And the same thing here, I had not been to it, I didn't location scout where this was. I was just told there's gaucho shelters out there if you can find them.
Gotta remember, these horses don't actually know me. Only been about 2 days with them, 3 days, so me getting used to them and them getting used to me is part of the process. The other thing to remember is I'm not really a horseman. Ridden horses a few times in my life, but it's still pretty much a fresh and new activity for me, so a lot of chances for me to make mistakes. Took me a little while, actually, to get the black horse to settle for me this morning. The big animals. If anything goes wrong out here with an animal this big, I could be in serious jeopardy. I have to admit, for me, it's probably even a little easier just to walk with the horses whenever I can walk, just because I'm an inexperienced rider. I've got the second horse tied to the back of the first horse. That's okay, but if there's any trouble, it's a little dangerous. Because if one horse starts freaking out, maybe the pack starts to fall off or something like that, then, and he's tied to the other horse, woohoo, that can be nasty.
I haven't seen this I haven't seen this show, and like so many of the other times I do these director's commentaries, so I don't know, 15 years at least. And, well, let's see, 2013, haven't watched it since we released it, so what is that, 2020, so 10 years, 10, 11 years. I forgot how strong that was incidental foreshadowing.
Surviving on the edge of the ocean, water is almost always in view, but undrinkable. Water is always one of the first and most vital aspects of survival to consider.
That's the best I can do. That's what I'm doing it from. Basically, hoof prints, wild cows, wild horses. That's why there's cow crap and horse crap everywhere.
That kind of cracks me up because there's actually a scene in True Grit with John Wayne, Glenn Campbell, and John Wayne. I can't remember the lines, but he's mocking Glenn Campbell because it's like, if I meet another Texas man who said he survived by drinking water out of a cattle print in the mud, you know, sort of thing. And here I am. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm surviving by drinking water out of cattle hoof prints.
Oh, hoof print water. It's better than dehydration.
The cows here became wild when they stopped being cared for years ago, and they're considered an invasive species on this land. I've been riding past hundreds of them, and they can be very dangerous. And just as I'm passing a couple of nasty-looking bulls with high cliffs all around me, while I look for a way down, it happened.
Whoa, 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 whoa. It's okay, 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 it's okay. Okay, it's okay. Well, it happened. Pack got loose on the last hill and fell off the horse. He was riding underneath his belly. He was freaking out. Meanwhile, I'm trying to find my way down this cliff. I'm not sure which way to go down. And now I'm on the top of the hill in the wind and the cold. Got to deal with this. That's the problem of surviving with horses. It's not easy. So now I've got nowhere to tie these horses up. I got to hold on to them and pack them at the same time. It's going to take a while.
I could, there's no way I can relate to you how, in many ways, terrifying this was. There were a couple of bulls who are rumored to be incredibly dangerous and aggressive just there. I could see them from where I was. So we're talking fully horned bulls that are mean, wild bulls. And I'm not good with horses. And the pack horse, the pack slid down underneath in the belly. My fault because I didn't tie it properly. And like, look, you can see by this how do I do, I have to one hand everything now. With one, I have to hold on to horses, two horses, and with one arm do everything else. Oh yeah, I think I probably did the really smart thing and tied the horses, get this, to my ankle.
What a mess. There we go. Okay, that's a start. I gotta hope I didn't lose anything. Gotta do this all very gently.
Let's remember now too that this is this is probably 36 hours now without any food in my belly. So all of this is done without food.
Some pockets ripped right open. My harmonica would have fallen out. Can't have that.
That was a close call. Horses are powerful animals. This little yet potentially very dangerous situation with the pack slipping down to the horse's belly has left me shaken.
And this would, I don't know how long that took on-screen time. Are we talking 2 minutes now at the most? That was probably 3 hours trying to get that all figured out, you know, and with the bulls off on the sideline. And I was trembling, I was shaking, you know, from the experience itself. I see I do get back up on the horse here. I'm surprised that I got back up on the horse, but I guess the riding horse was still all set. But now I'm super nervous.
A few more hours of riding yet, and shaken confidence is bad news for a survival situation. Walking would be endless and extremely difficult through all the peat bog sections of my travel, yet I'm now ruling over 2 horses without confidence. So I prefer to walk, but the distance I have yet to go is much too far to give up on the horses now. So on I ride, hoping to make it to the nearest gaucho cabins soon.
And you can see all the hoof prints from wild horses. I don't mention the wild horses all that much. I mostly mention the wild cattle, but the wild horses, which I have an experience with later. And so all these prints, that's just the creatures that were coming before me.
Tied up the horses and I've got my first stream of fresh water. I'm gonna guzzle as much as I can here. At the moment, I've got nothing to carry water in. So I'm just gonna drink and drink and drink because really one of the best places to carry water is in your belly.
I mentioned that, by the way, one time in a situation recently, did another one of those, you know, Les Stroud breaks down survival scenarios in films and stuff. And so The Insider channel asked me to do that for desert scenes. And I don't know why people argue with me on this, but you know, my point was that, look, if all you have is a half a pint of water and you're heading through the desert, you're actually better off to just to keep it in your belly, ingest the water and go with it that way, than to try to make it be a sip of water over the next while. It just, yeah, it's a better way for survival.
Well, it's brown, but it'll do. It's the first full day without food in my stomach, so as much water as I can drink, I will. Helps me to feel full, not so hungry, and it'll keep away any dehydration, headaches, or problems. It's ice cold water, it's nice. Doesn't matter where you go, where you have to survive, this is the key to life. Especially in the cold weather, actually. That's the toughest time to remember to stay hydrated. Horses are watching me. They must think I'm nuts talking to myself.
Areas this rugged often show extreme examples of life and death played out on the coastline.
This is something I see everywhere around here. Oh, wait a minute. I was going to say it's a dead cow, but it's not. It's a dead guanaco. The guanacos are protected in this area. They're not really llama family, but they look a lot like a llama. The one kind that can't be domesticated. Every time they tried to, they would die. They wouldn't live in captivity. So they remain out here as wild and free as the stallions and the cows. Nothing left there for me to partake of. This is what keeps the condors fed.
I suppose, truth be told, in real survival, you know, those bones could be harvested and you basically boiled up for a bone broth, split open to see if there's any marrow inside. That was a pretty dried, pretty old skeleton, but in desperation, that is definitely possible.
With the sun hanging low in the sky and 2 days' ride behind me, I finally made it to a gaucho cabin. It'll be refuge from the biting ocean winds and a place to attempt survival in Tierra del Fuego. From here, I can search the interior and hunt for game. I can settle the horses and not worry about packing them up every morning to move on.
This is gonna be home.
Compared to staying out on the land, it is indeed home. It's not often when faced with survival that one can take advantage of an existing shelter.
Well, I'm just gonna check.
But I love to do it. Again, you know, these situations were a chance for me to say, look, survival isn't always making an A-frame shelter. You know, survival can be finding a cabin or some kind of dwelling. And in this case, I was told I should be able to find some old gaucho cabins, you know, out there. That means that survival in Tierra del Fuego incorporates into it the possibility of utilizing an old gaucho cabin. Now, by now, these cabins, I'm not sure if this cabin's even standing. That was 10 years ago, and they're all pretty much abandoned. There's just this one old gaucho, he was old then, that sort of goes around and uses them, but nobody's really using them. So the days of them being accessible for survival might be limited.
Place out. Ah, nice. Wood stove. Now I've just gotta get some food and water.
That's a big thing. That went. Oh, battery change time.
Food will mean looking inland and possibly hunting a wild cow. And water will have to come from melting the pockets of snow or from the roof should it come on to rain. This shelter is likely close to 70 years old, but it's a paradise to a lost traveler and a rare find in a survival situation.
A rare find in a survival situation, but I do love it when you can find a shelter and incorporate it into, what's going on in terms of having to survive. By the way, the Gaucho's way of life is a pretty cool, fun way. I mean, these guys were, I met these guys before I went in, obviously, and to figure things out and stuff, and you will never find a Gaucho in Argentina without a bottle of red wine. Good red wine.
I don't know if you can hear that or not. It has been pouring for a couple of hours now, and the wind is just howling. And I've been awake for about an hour and a half trying not to throw up. As for the weather, well, Argentina is one of those places where they say, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
Now, see, that's the thing about when you can find some sort of shack is you've just eliminated all of your shelter needs. You have a roof that's waterproof. You have walls protect you from the wind. You can potentially get warm in there if you can figure out a way for heat. So it's really, it's a not to be missed, very important part of wilderness survival is, can you find a cabin or a cave or a dwelling of some sort rather than the cliche of building an A-frame shelter. That's all cool and cliched, really, but it's better in real survival if you can find a dwelling.
But it's been a lot longer than 5 minutes, and it's coming down. I hope the horses are okay. I mean, it's like an intense storm out there right now. This is going to be an interesting morning. You hear that? The wind is just insane right now. I don't think I'm in Kansas anymore because it feels like it could easily blow this shelter away. You get what you get in a survival situation. No more than rain, snow, cold, heat, wind. In a survival situation, wind is a lockdown. When the wind blows strong and hard, there's not much you can do. Wait it out.
I have to keep telling myself this place has lasted here over 70 years, that it can withstand this windstorm. The strongest winds I've ever been in. The whole building is just shuddering. I feel like this is the day that it finally gets blown down, and I'm here to witness it. Let's hope not.
You can't see the wind like you can see rain and snow. You can only feel its effects. It can wick away your body heat in seconds and bring on hypothermia quickly. It's the one ingredient added to cold, rain, snow, or sand that can turn a difficult situation into a deadly one.
And just, you can see here, I remember now doing this walk that the wind was so powerful, it was difficult just to keep myself standing up. You had to lean into the wind to walk. That's how strong it was.
And today, I can't even make it out to the coast.
I think probably the worst is the wind. Woo! This is the strongest wind I've ever been in. I could use a big fat cow to eat right about now, and I can see them, and all because of wind. I can't even get out to get them, and I'm ready to go. There's no movement out there. There's no nothing.
Wow, I'm just sort of, again, I'm remembering this as we go, that this was one of those situations where I'd gotten permission and license and everything to be able to actually hunt a wild cow. And I remember thinking, man, if I can hunt a wild cow, what an episode that would be to show, taking an animal that big. You see it on these other shows and things are set up. And, you know, but I mean, at the best of times, it can be, and all the greatest equipment and going home to sleep at night and all the rest of it, it can be very difficult to take a deer or a moose or an elk or a cow in this case, ungulates basically. But here I had them so close, and I thought, okay, this will be the episode that I'm going to take a large animal. The four fish in the Arctic were phenomenal. The Arctic char, that was quite an excellent situation to be able to show. But this is one time. You know, it would be normal to be lost at Argentina with a rifle. It would be normal to hunt a cow if you need food, and that's what they do all the time. So let's bring that into this episode and see what can happen.
Everything's hunkered down. And I'm trapped. I hate being trapped.
It's amazing. I still have that coat actually, and I remember the reason why I picked it up was because when I got there, expecting 60 degrees and sunny every day in grasslands, and then they're like, "Oh no, it can be this cold." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!" The whole expedition was planned on a warm, sunny Argentina, and so I bought this gear that I'm wearing now, sort of in the last minute, to have with me when I got out there. And it was a good thing. I wasn't expecting to use it at all. I was just like, okay, well, I'll buy some extra stuff just in case. Yeah, well, just in case happened.
Learned something early on in survival ordeals. You can't judge unless you were there. It's rare that I have to stop doing what I intend to do in a survival situation. When it happens, it always has a profound effect on my emotions.
It's been about 9 hours since it started. It's still blowing. This is as bad as the endless rains in the jungles. Once it starts, you're at its mercy. 12 hours. Still blowing hard.
When trapped in a survival ordeal, it can be demoralizing to have to sit and watch as time goes by.
It reminds me of the time in the Arctic. You know, that's the thing that it's very difficult to portray. Well, we portrayed it well here, though, is just time passing and the boredom of survival situations when you're locked down by weather. And Argentina, if memory serves, Argentina probably more than any other place, any other expedition in the history of my survival stuff, and never mind Survivorman, is the place that locked me down and just said, you're not going anywhere.
15 hours. Still blowing strong.
All through my daylight hours, the wind blows hard. And just like that, it's over. But now I'm another day weaker and without food, and I'm carrying a few days of frustration, none of which is making me feel any more confident for dealing with the horses.
It may not seem like all that much, but when you're in a survival situation and you've got to look after an animal or another person for that matter, it's a lot of extra duty. In this case, I've got the horses to deal with. Your brain's got to concentrate on so many things. Right now, I'm mostly concerned with what I've got to do. And meanwhile, I got to think, oh, wait a minute, the horses. Right, okay, what do they need at the moment? Oh, around the tree, back down, back through the hole. I'm not thinking right here. What the heck? Come on, brain, work. What am I messing up here? This is when I know I need more food than I think. Years of doing the bowline and lack of food for a few days, and I forgot how to do it.
Isn't that crazy? Because really, those of us who know our knots know that muscle memory often takes over. If you're not thinking, you just go, brrr, boom, done. There's your bowline. There's your trucker's hitch. There's your, you know, this or that. And yet, 4 days now, no food, and even muscle memory, you start to lose it. It's like, whoa, is it to the right or is it to the left? And then that further intensifies your frustration in the moment.
Okay,
being that nauseous last night, I think took a stripe or two out of me, and I'm dizzy. Time to check out all the area. This is obviously where they've hung cows before, after hunting them out there. Wild cows. Okay, check this out. Oh. Okay, that's pretty disgusting. Obviously crawling with maggots, but if I had to, I could boil it up. There's some here too. Big hunk of cow fat. I have no idea of knowing how old it is, but I have a feeling I'm going to be calling it dinner tonight.
And that cow fat right there is what saved me from going into the... I was going to do the maggots. I was going to eat them, but I don't need to be sensationalistic about this. It's like, oh, well, wait a minute. I got a big hunk of cow fat here. I do not need to eat the maggots. So that cow fat kind of saved me in that moment.
So this is where I can keep my horse tackle nice and dry, clean. This looks like a treasure trove, possibly just junk. Broken glass and a lot of big hunks of metal. Not a lot I can do with. Keep looking around to see what else I can find.
Survey of the cabin area done. I can get back on track with my needs, and food is making its way to the top of the list. All around the cabin are herds of wild cows, and all I need is one. Taking one with nothing more than a .22 rifle is not going to be easy.
Just gonna do a little harness making here with some lamp wick. Well, that should work. And hopefully shoot myself some dinner and some breakfast and some lunch. It's gonna be a lot easier said than done. Let's go sight this thing in.
And for those of you who are not familiar with rifles, a cow with a .22, it's a pretty small bullet. The shot has to be essentially perfect to do what needs to be done, and probably will require more than one perfect shot. So it's possible, just I wish they'd given me a much more powerful rifle.
I'm a good shot, but this is an old gun, and it was handed to me just before my journey with the advice that I should try to hunt a young cow.
Well, let's just go see where that one hit. It sounded good. Hey, all right. It's right on the money. Check it out. Nailed it, right on, dead center. First initial shots were pretty wide down here. Then I started getting them closer here. Then that last one, I gotta go after the real thing now. That's a whole other story. These are the scenes that are a little hard to shoot sometimes. So 3 days without food, and I just start to feel just general nausea. Every once in a while, I just gotta kind of stop and sit back. Sit back. Makes it hard to get anything done when you start to get active and you get slowed down by your stomach.
And for the record, no, there was no food in any of these containers, or I would have eaten it. I would have shown it. So I said, you see what happens? You get into a survival shelter, there's food left over. There was nothing other than that hunk of fat. And that's something I probably don't talk about often, is when you go that long without food in a survival situation, nausea is definitely something you have to deal with. There's kind of no escaping it. I mean, try going without food for 24 hours, see how you feel. There will be moments where you get lightheaded, dizzy, and you feel that nausea. And now you're supposed to be surviving. You're supposed to be, and in my case, I'm supposed to be even making a film. It can be, it's challenging.
I've got an idea. Because I've been rummaging around, I found a little bit more. Tiny little bit of flour, a little bit of salt. And I found that big hunk of fat hanging in the shed. Who knows how long that's been hanging there. Looks like it's been hanging there since the days of the gauchos. But it'll have to do. Well, I've got a bit of an idea. One that might put a little bit of food in my stomach. a way of getting something cooking without heating up that big stove inside, using up all the good firewood. I'll need that if it turns cold on me. The idea here being I'll make myself a little bit of an outside stove.
Let me just make a note on that. So notice that I didn't get a fire going right away inside the shelter. And the reason was it wasn't all that cold yet. Whatever blankets were there were working for me to keep me, make it so that I could sleep. And so that is all about, rationing my firewood. I don't recall there being lots of firewood there, so I was then forced to ration fire. You always think about rationing food, rationing water. You don't think about things like rationing firewood, but it's exactly what you have to do in certain situations. And this was one of those times. I had to ration firewood. Who knows? I didn't know how cold it was going to get. Proved to be a good thing.
I think that was rat crap. It's that hunk of fat. The thing about fat is it actually stays good for a long time. So what I'm going to do is I'll use some of this stuff, a little bit of flour I found, mix it with a little bit of water and the salt that's in there, and try to make some hardtack. You on top like this. Never used a chainsaw blade for this before. You on top. Just want to make up a bit of dough and then fry it in this cow fat. Basically, this is a survival donut. Oh, yeah. And I still need to be careful. This is hot grease now. Ow! Yeah, that's hot grease, all right. Oh, might actually be working. Ow! Son of a... Wow. Okay, this is where it gets a little dangerous, because I'm starting to get a little too splattered. And the last thing I want out here is to get a severe burn. So. Now, the problem here is that this kind of grease in my stomach can also be hard on my stomach, and I'm already experiencing a lot of bouts of nausea. So hopefully this won't make it worse. There's plenty of water, so I'll try and stay very hydrated.
I always thought this scene just seemed so gnarly. But I was glad for it because it wasn't sensationalized. It wasn't trying to look gnarly on purpose, but it really does show you how rough things can get. You know, when you're in a survival situation, here you are in this grotto little, shack shelter thing. Who knows? Maybe that's where the dogs were. Maybe they kept, I don't know what they would have kept there. But, working with rusted out stuff, old cow fat, and, as I said, the pots that had, rat poop still in them. That is not being melodramatic. That is making do in a survival situation. And it's been a long time since I've seen this, and it's just reminding me why I kind of always like this episode.
There you go, that's hardtack. My gosh. That tastes amazing. Oh, wow. I may have to do that again because that's fantastic. This is awesome. Look at this. This is the little remnants fat that I used. I should have a very warm night tonight. This kind of food, high-fat food like this, right before bed, burns in my stomach all night long, and hopefully in a good way. It creates a lot of heat, and a real trick is to have fat like this and crawl into bed. Oftentimes you have to push the covers off because you're so warmed up. Well, when you're sleeping in the cold, it's a great trick to know. It's amazing what you'll eat when you're hungry. I'll let you know.
That's actually, I've taught that a lot of times. Like now, I'll say, if you're going out on just adventure camping and it's a cold night, you want to stay warm that night, one thing to do, a couple of tips here, void your bladder. So go out, go pee, try to not drink too much, maybe 2 hours before going to bed. Don't drink a big, huge thing of tea. Finish all that and void your bladder a couple of times and then go to bed. That helps a lot so you just don't have to get up in the middle of the night. Number two is to eat some fat. What I do on camping trips is like a 1-inch square block of cheese, cheddar cheese. Simple as that. I've recommended this to people many times, especially a lot of women. I've recommended it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I had such a wonderful night. I was so warm. It's like, yep, because the cheese just gets your metabolism going and you stay warm all night. So it's interesting. Oh, that's the GoPro. I'll have to replace that battery. Maybe it needed some cheddar cheese to keep going. Anyway, to finish my story is to say that, that cheddar cheese just, burns in your stomach, and it really does work. It's a great trick for camping trips, and I highly advise doing that. Get some fat in your stomach. I'll tell you what, while I change that battery, Luke, why don't you show them the footage of me, since this is almost Christmas, hawking some of my stuff. I don't really like hawking merchandise and swag, but you guys do ask all the time where you can get certain items. For example, check this out, Hennessy hammock. I put a lot of time and effort into designing this hammock with Hennessy. It's their top hammock. It's an amazing, beautiful, comfortable hammock to enjoy for all of your adventures out there, so just check it out. It's got a full-size tarp, which was a big thing for me. It's got insulation, and I love it. So I've got the Hennessy hammocks. Of course, for years I've been in a phenomenal relationship with Hella of Norway, Hella Knives. And this is our signature knife, of course, the Tamagami. These knives are handmade. In fact, I've been there to this very ancient factory where I don't know how many, it's well over 100 years that they've been operating, and every single handle is handmade. All of the grinding, everything is done by hand. And these knives are absolutely beautiful. I also now have a brand new relationship, and you will see these items, new foraging tools that I'm designing with LT Wright Knives out of Ohio. And also, Chef Paul Rogalski of Wild Harvest has the signature Chef Paul Rogalski kitchen knife collection. Those are a big thrill to me, to have these beautiful items that we spent years designing, and I still have them available for you. However, if you want to go more the route of just enjoying the Survivorman legacy, if you will, then of course, go to my website, lestroud.ca, go to the shop page. Right there, you've got everything. All the swag, all the merch, such as my manual on survival. This is if you want to get into survival. This book is meant to be a way to walk you through step by step, because I deal a lot more with concepts than I do with specifics, because that's really important. Once you understand the concepts of fire by friction, for example, you can do it depending on where you are, because I can't give you the advice on how to do it here in Canada and hope that it's also going to work down in the jungle. Things are different. So I've always been very proud of this book, Survive. So that is my survival manual. Also, if you weren't aware, I've got the book Will to Live. I wrote this book it's kind of for a lot of fun. I took my 10 favorite survival stories, such as Chris McCandless Into the Wild or the Robertson family and the life raft, and I basically dissect them with this book. I tear apart the story, I go through everything, and I even give them a little bit of a grade on how I thought they did. So I really enjoyed writing this book. It's a real easy read, it's a fast read, but I think there's a lot of insight there for you into all of these different examples of people who have either survived or perished. Speaking of books, so honored, so thrilled, so proud that Wild Outside, my first children's book, has won the Yellow Cedar Award, Best Nonfiction Children's Book in Canada for ages 7 to 14. I tell stories from Survivorman, lessons learned during those expeditions and adventures, and there are even activities they can do in the out of doors. So there you go. My new book, my children's book, Wild Outside, Around the World with Survivorman, has just won the Yellow Cedar Award, and I'm up for another award yet. And in keeping with stuff that's going on right now, we are also up for an award for our Season 1 recipe book from the series Wild Harvest. And if you've never caught the series Wild Harvest, check this out.
Woohoo! Beautiful little rainbow. Dinner.
This perhaps is the most incredible kitchen scenario I've ever had.
When you start getting involved in local foraging and bringing the ingredients home and playing with them in the kitchen, can you create a dish where the domestic ingredients don't overshadow the wild ingredients?
Hey there. Oh, go on.
Now the job's getting fun.
This dish is a showcase of how great these foraged ingredients come together.
It's the best when it's its own flavor. When you're making something with a wild edible, you're nailing it and not losing the wild flavor.
Sometimes it is about the ingredients.
Tell me that doesn't look awesome. 2 seasons right now, 26 episodes. In the United States, it's on PBS stations. You can also get it on this YouTube channel. In Canada, Cottage Life TV. In Sweden and Norway, on Matt Canalan. It's on National Geographic. Asia, which includes China and India. So my Wild Harvest series is playing around the world now, and we, with every single season, create a recipe book based on the recipes that we show you in the actual shows themselves. So that's Wild Harvest. And of course, if you want the DVD, you can get that on this website as well, lesstroud.ca. And let's not forget too, that I'm a musician. The CDs themselves are available on the website. The next release will be the re-release of the Mother Earth album on vinyl. But go on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music, or on my website, you can go to the shop page, you can pick up all of my CDs. So this is the last one. This is my 20th anniversary selection. Check it out. Every film I've ever made, 76 films in all of the Survivorman, Bigfoot, Beyond Survival, music documentaries, one-off films such as the award-winning La Loche about the school shooting up in Canada and a healing canoe trip. This is my 20th anniversary, 76 films. And people that have picked this up have raved about it. And I'm really proud that I can say I've got 20 years of anything, to be honest with you. That's available for you as well on that Les Stroud shop page. Okay, that's me hawking my stuff. Back to the video. All right, that was a lot of cool stuff. And it is almost Christmas. So shall we continue?
I'll let you know if I start throwing up in an hour or two.
Hardtack is just flour mixed with water, no baking powder. But my focus is still on hunting a calf.
If everything's to line up tomorrow, I need the perfect shot, the right weather, the right sunlight, the right psychology, the right emotion. Everything's got to line up for that one moment of taking the shot. So I'll play a song of honor. Maybe that'll help. Maybe that'll help.
I figure I can use the horses to get out on the hunt, but it quickly becomes a lost cause.
So you gotta remember here. So at this point, you know, in getting into shooting this episode, being on this survival expedition, I had been expecting warm, beautiful weather the whole time. Didn't get that. I had not been expecting to go on horses. Ended up having to utilize horses, and I'm now, you know, fortunately that the cow fat that must have given me some energy for certain. Yet the whole thing, I was trying to center this whole particular experience around getting a wild calf on a, you know, while out in a survival situation. And this is, I mean, I already had to deal with the rain, then I had to deal with the wind, and I had the one almost insane accident with the horses. But this is where it just goes downhill from here.
Before I can even get them out there, I'm having trouble. The black horse has become defiant. He's fighting me on even just getting the bit into his mouth. When I try the other horse, it won't leave the black horse's side. So I'm forced to give up and take the hunt on foot.
So
Most of the cattle.
So that just seems like, oh, just this thing, you know, hey, I had some bad luck with the horses. It was way worse than that. They were bucking up and rearing on at times. They just had decided, we're done with you. And I suppose, you know, being out there in all the stormy weather and just being stuck out there, they were not happy, but they were definitely not happy with me. And I became really frustrated. Like at one point I had like a little mini temper tantrum and had the horse's bit and just like winged it across the you know, into the barn sort of thing as hard as I could. I was like, and shouting out expletives because I was really upset, because it's like, come on, I need you horses to be able to continue to do what I came here to do, which was to be in a survival situation and go on a wild calf hunt. How cool would that be? And they would have no part of it. So I was already at this point now, I'm starting to get, I guess what I'm trying to, the picture I'm trying to paint for you here is that during this week, I'm not whining, but I'm saying that I was starting to get beaten down. My morals, my morale, and my motivation, everything was getting beaten down at this point.
The cattle is close by. Then you start getting fairly close to them, they start moving away.
And of course, I'm on foot, so I gotta be careful. I need a close shot. See one small enough. Well, I've got to 22. I gotta find another way to survive out here. It's, my energy's, it's dropping. It's dropping fast now.
Peeking over a hilltop seems like it might be the ideal way to get close to the wild cows. But it's a small calf that I need, and the shot would have to be a perfect one and at close range, since the .22 rifle is not very powerful.
It's a bull. Shoot.
Getting this close to a handful of fully grown bulls with nowhere to run and only a small rifle is dangerous. And in a survival situation, the idea is to keep myself out of danger, not invite it with risky moves.
Oh, I got thorns in my bum. I fell into a thorn bush. That'd be the way to do it. Just sneak up like that. I was right on them, but they're all big ones, no small. Shoot.
I think this is one of those situations too where the advice ahead of time, and you'll hear this in a lot of sort of wildernessy situations and stuff, is just, oh, you'll just be able to do this, you'll just be able to do that. And so it's like one of those cases where the Argentinian men that had sort of said, here, you can go down here, sort of thing. Oh, you'll just be able to, you know, shoot a calf. Here's a beat up old .22 rifle. Take that. It's like, and I probably didn't feel from the start like this was going to be a successful venture, but I wanted to try hard. And sure enough, you know, I come over the hill and I'm not looking at a calf, I'm looking at a bull. That doesn't help.
Oh, here comes the rain. Yeah, it's gonna be a night of rain.
Things are simply not going my way. In the world.
Now note that time lapse there. That is probably a shot from Max Atwood, and this is where the story changes in a bit in terms of, I've always said, you know, I've got a crew that will go off and get beauty shots. They get shots like this, the B-roll, the time lapses and the sunrises and the sunsets, that sort of thing, the birds flying by. And we use those as transitions like we're doing here. And so all the while that this is going on with me, I'm having the horse problem, then I have the rain problem, then I have the wind problem. Now I'm myself having, you know, I've lost the use of my horses because they won't listen to me anymore, and I don't know how to rectify that. I'm just not skilled enough to rectify that. All this time, Max Atwood and the rest of the crew, 2 or 3 people, are many miles away. They're comfortable, they've got wine and food and shelter, but they're supposed to be going out to the land every day and filming and getting this transitional beauty B-roll, as we call it, which they were doing. But what was about to happen was going to happen to all of us.
Of survival luck, I'm not having any. Or at least what luck I am having is not good.
Today was not a good day for morale. That's not good for survival. Everything you do affects whether or not you survive, and whether or not you eat depends on what you do. Sure changes everything. A person's true measure is counted when they're hungry. Being hungry will make you do strange things. Tomorrow's another day.
My struggle in Argentina has been a tough one, an internal one. Bad luck with horses, bad luck with finding food, bad luck with the weather. It's all been pretty difficult, and now it's getting to me.
Decided to console myself with a fire tonight. I need to pick up my spirits, and a fire usually does the job, so. Whew. It's a colder night tonight. You know what? I'm done with feeling sorry for myself. Today was a rough day, but I had a little epiphany. I realized what the problem is. I'm not in control. And in a survival situation, somebody's got to take control. And when you're all alone, there's only one choice of who it's going to be.
It's the feeling of being out of control that's the hardest to handle. In fact, it's the darkest essence of survival itself. If I don't take control, I have no say on what comes next. And creating my own destiny is never more important than when it comes to survival.
The mornings here are incredibly late. That is to say, the days are incredibly short. It's hard to get a good start on things. You wake up in the morning and it's just, you know, it's frigid. And
Yeah, it's not that I really don't do many or any comparisons to a lot of the survival shows that came along after Survivorman. But as I think about it, you know, I am, you know, really pleased that with Survivorman, you know, I was able to take every single day, individual day, and you got a deep dive into that individual day as far as what was going on. And if there was something significant in terms of survival, I'm able to film that and show that. Whereas with, you know, some of the new shows that come along, like say Alone or something, you know, when you're looking at, you know, 40, 50 days sort of thing, or 30 days, and you've got all those other stories to tell, you're really only getting little slivers of information of what's really truly going on during a whole day of survival. And, you know, from morning to night, an amazing amount of things can happen, or nothing can happen at all. But even that becomes part of the story. So I've always been very glad with Survivorman that we could dive deeper into what was going on an individual daily basis. Sometimes when nothing was going on, I would worry, do I have a show here? You know, do I have enough sort of pizzazz moments that are like, wow, he caught a rabbit? And I would worry about that. In Argentina, I wasn't worried about that at all because something was going wrong every day here. I think that's it. That's why I was getting dejected. Every single day in Argentina, something went wrong rather than right. Finding a shelter was something that went right. So that was good. But that was the tough part here. And the thing about when I say, you know, some pizzazz or a moment happens, well, a lot of times while filming Survivorman, it would be the third or fourth day before something really cool would happen. And up until that point, I would worry, do I have a show? Do I have anything here? I just got here, I made a little shelter, but that's it. You know, I gotta, you know, there has to be some significant survival happenings for me to have a good show. And there would always be something, but sometimes it would take till the fifth day, and then I'd be really worried. But if it would happen on the third day, like catching the rabbit at the plane crash episode, you know, that happened early. And as soon as that happened, I thought, I have my episode because a lot's going to be around this rabbit. And it's such a cool happening that everything else becomes supportive. But if it's 5 days and nothing like that has happened, as I said, as a producer, as a director, I start to get worried.
Horses are fine. Had visitors here last night, little foxes. I think I'm gonna have some hardtack and take to the water. I wanna catch some fish. It's going on 5 days without food now, and I can't eat grass. If this goes on any longer, I might have to eat some horses. I've been doing a bunch of looking inside here. Check this out. Oh, this is gonna be great. Take the lure, whip it around the head, out it goes, out into the ocean, and then reel it back in around the can. Found a couple other things. The ever useful rope. There's lots of rope, so I'll stock up on it and make use of it. Actually, I like getting this thick rope like this because I can always take it apart. It takes a while, but I can use the thinner strands of it if I want to.
I'm only a few hundred yards from the ocean water. This river is locked inside the land and offers me a chance of freshwater fishing. And for this, I have my hopes up, finally.
Before we get into the fishing, I'm not sure, maybe I didn't tell the story, or maybe I'm preempting it, and I do tell the story, but one of these nights, this was crazy. Wild horses came in, a wild stallion came in and tried to lure away my two horses, and he kept me up all night. Maybe I will tell it. Maybe it's tonight that it happens, because it would be crazy if that was a story I didn't actually tell you guys during the show. But we'll wait and see, and I'll elaborate on it if I don't tell it at all.
Wish me luck.
I had a lot of
The
hope
last few days have been challenging
in this.
psychologically. and I do need a boost.
I think maybe I'll give myself a routine. In any survival situation, routine helps a lot. It keeps your mind sharp and feel like you're being proactive. So I think I'll do maybe 20 or 25 casts in each spot and just keep working my way along the river and hopefully hit into some luck. Water's cold on the hands.
Fishing is one activity I know well. Hunting down wild cows is not.
It still feels a lot more likely than creeping up on a wild herd of cow.
Hunting with an old .22 rifle seemed like a fool's endeavor right from the start. At least with fishing, I feel like I have a real chance. I'm not ready to give up on Argentina just yet. This has been some of the toughest survival I've endured, which is ironic considering the fact that I have an easy and ready-made shelter to base out of. I didn't have to build one myself. But shelter is only one part of survival. No matter how many years of successful surviving I have under my belt, if my luck runs out, it simply runs out.
And that's the thing is, shelter is only one part of the equation. Many, a lost victim has died inside a shelter. No food, no water. What's the man's name? There's a guy, it's a famous story up in the Arctic. Somebody's going to know, and you can post it. Gosh, and I've read the books about him too. Famous story of a guy, and same thing. Just they were in shelters up in the Arctic. They were in cabins, what's his name? I've lost it. Maybe somebody will know what I'm talking about. And he was with his nephew, whose name was Christian, and they all died, inside the cabin. They had got to a point where they were cooking their mitts to try to get from the leather in the mitts to try to get nutrition and sustenance and nothing, and they all died inside a cabin. Case in point.
Been at this all day, and not a single hit.
John Hornsby, The Legend of John Hornsby. If you've never read that book, read that book. It's fascinating. Fascinating survival or tragic lack of survival story.
Not gonna stop though. Well, weather wants to play a few games this week. It's snowing now. Oh, I didn't need the snow. What I need more than snow is a fish on the end of this line. It's been 6 hours of fishing. 6 hours of throwing this line out there. All right. I'm gonna get out of this snow before my cameras get drenched. My fingers are frozen off.
I can't believe it's snowing now. I can believe it's snowing now. That's what it does here. Goes from nice and sunny to a blizzard in a matter of moments.
That is not what I was prepared for. I had come down there only prepared for warm, sunny days, cool evenings. That's what I was pitched, if you will. And that's why my mind wasn't right for what was going down. Like at this point, I'm like, are you kidding me? It's gonna snow now?
Poor horses have to stay out in it. My option is to come in here.
Nearly 7 days into surviving in Argentina, and the weather has not stopped giving me surprises.
And just like that, it goes from a complete blizzard to a stunning, beautiful sunset. And my world's become white. Since I still have daylight, it's pretty dark inside the cabin. Thought I'd still come out and try one last blast at fishing. Wow.
Every fisherman knows what it's like to be skunked and to mutter under your breath with every cast, "Come on and bite. Just one hit." To be skunked when it's your very survival is hard to take.
See that? I'm probably 900 yards from those cows, and they just barely caught a glimpse of me, and off they took off. I'm not eating steak tonight. I guess if it really gets down to it, I could trap the fox. It just doesn't seem right, though. My stomach might tell me otherwise.
I expected to at least get a shot at hunting some wild cows. I expected to have a strong chance of bringing in a fish or even getting out to some reefs during low tide and searching for octopus or shellfish. But Argentina has other plans. And it seems to have shut me down at every turn, constantly going from bad to worse. And now the winter has decided to show up early. And with my inadequate clothes for this kind of weather, it just doesn't bode well for me. It's hard on me. It's hard on the horses. And once again, I'm trapped. There are enough stories of men trapped in cabins, unable to get out to safety, unable to hunt for food, reduced to dying slowly within 4 protective walls. Sometimes places of refuge and the safety they imply is very misleading as they morph from refuge into prison.
Well, there you have it. That's what I woke up to this morning. What a difference a day makes.
I know I've got a down jacket there, but this wind was so biting and just relentless that, you know, my footwear, pants, not having long johns, stuff like that, I was just not ready to film a survival expedition with this kind of weather. Had I known that's what I was going to, I would have been ready for that. Was not ready for this.
The winter storm is not content with just blowing through the night. It starts up again and again and keeps me locked in a state of anxiousness and frustration.
I'm not getting out in this. I wouldn't even want to put the horses through that. Shut down again, first by the wind, and now by a blizzard. I'm stuck here, and I'm not moving anywhere.
The beauty that is indeed the view of a winter's day is betrayed by the lack of ability to enjoy it. There is no more firewood in the cabin, and anything outside is now well hidden by the snow. The once warm cabin has become a freezer box.
"18 hours. Still snowing."
I had come here prepared for rolling green hills and cool temperatures, but this I was not ready for.
25 hours. Still snowing.
The horses dig through the snow, continuously munching on grass while I wait, held captive by the greatest force of all, nature. I can't hope to fight it, only try to endure it.
It's been about, I don't know, 28, 30 hours now, and finally, some blue sky.
There's a good chance to tell this story of what was going on with the crew. So during this day, they were out getting beauty shots. They were getting, you know, filming the snow, and when the blizzard came in,
Max and I went out with, he had his guide, I had my guide, and we separated. He was filming one area, and he'd gone into the water and got wet, and I went further along somewhere, and then the tide, something happened. The tides came in, or a storm blew in.
tide came in.
And we got separated. And I mean, I think 3 blizzards blew in. I was on the shoreline there, and Adolfo started a fire with a piece of rubber. We had a massive bonfire, and we were out there for hours. And he had an apple, and I remember he roasted the apple in the fire with a coat hanger, just for heat. And I could see Max's fire. It was a long distance away. Of course, there's no cell service. There's no nothing. And it was dark. and you're not sure how long you're going to be there for.
One of the most beautiful places I filmed, 100%. But one of the most unforgiving landscapes I've ever filmed in. It was just a nightmare to do anything. It was like there was these 300-foot cliffs that went down into the ocean, and then on top of the cliffs was like, as miles and miles and miles of like peat bog. So you couldn't really like hike through the landscape. You also only had this like really small amount of time that you could like get across. Like when the tide came out, so there's like a hill, these mountains here, and the tide would go, and it was a really long tide, like one of the longest tides I've ever seen. Like it was like kilometers out. And that left this sand bottom that you could traverse on an ATV. But you really had to know your tide charts, because as soon as that tide came back in, wherever you were, you're trapped there. And I remember I was with a guide. There's a big language barrier. It was just me and him. We misjudged the tide chart, and we got so I went out thinking that I was going to be filming in the ocean for 3 hours. We misjudged the tide. So the tide came out. We drove the ATV to the location. I shot. Unbeknownst to us, the tide came in. We lost track of time, lost track of the tide chart. Then it's like, oh wow, we're trapped. And then I remember thinking like, oh well, how long's the tide? And and the guide was like, it's a 6-hour tide. So that means you're gonna have to wait 6 hours for it to go out enough that you can get back. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like I didn't pack any water, I didn't pack any food. I got soaked because I went into the ocean to like film with a GoPro, and then it started to snow. Like that was the other thing about that location. It was like you had like every single type of weather in the same day. You'd like wake up, it would be freezing cold, and then it would get sunny and hot, and then it would rain, and then it would be so windy, and then it would snow, like all in the same day. It was like a wild place when it came to like weather. And I remember at that time I was like wet and cold, and then it started to snow. And we had to just sit there and wait for the tide. And it was just me and the guide. I remember we lit a fire. I pulled it was like sea garbage everywhere. And I remember I found like a rusty old piece of sheet metal, pulled it up to the fire, laid on that so I wasn't laying on the cold snow. I had my water bottle, so I was packing snow in the water bottle and melting it on the fire for water. And actually, I still have that. It's like a thermos bottle, and I still have it. I keep it in my office. It has like a big burn mark up the side of this aluminum bottle, and I just keep it there as like it's like a fond memory. But that was like one of the hardest things. I was like shivering cold. It was the afternoon tide, so it was getting dark. So by the time we could leave, it was like pitch black. And I just remember being on the back of an ATV with like, it was like sleet at that point, just being like on the back of the ATV, just like for like, it was like a 3-hour trek to go back. I think we got back, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So, I mean, and then you have to get up the next day at sunrise. I mean, it just is what it is. Like that was the job.
That was leading up as well to what was going to happen next, I think.
Just in time for sunset. Locked down again. And it's frigid now.
I have no warm underwear, no winter boots or socks. Only my emergency down coat is keeping me from freezing.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. And this is now 48 hours locked in, no food, freezing temperatures, and not like bitter cold temperatures came in. And I'm not knowing what's going on with the crew. I'm assuming they're happy and warm inside a cabin somewhere and waiting it out. No, they were also out there getting stuck, as I was mentioning. So. And I should mention that's not a.
And this is really.
That's not a heavy down coat. That's actually it packs down to about this big. It's just a light little emergency down that I had just in case it cooled down quite a bit. And so yeah, this was cold.
How it happens so easily. I'm shut down from a day of constant blizzards. I've gone from grass to this.
Argentina, in essence, has beaten me at my own game. My game of survival. I came here expecting to experience the fall weather of rain and wind. Even green hills while I travel along the coastline, gathering seafood, maybe hunting a cow. But the weather here paid no attention to my expectations. It cared not about my survival. It remains as it always does, completely indifferent to the creatures that live and travel here. It simply exists as a harsh climate that only the tough survive. Over and over again, groups of humans have not survived here. They stay for a while, but then they leave, beaten and done with the struggle that is survival on Tierra del Fuego.
And so here's what happened now. So what happened was this day, I shot these scenes basically to make for a credit bed outro, as we would say. I knew I would need some sort of scenes leaving. I was supposed to stay here for another, 3 days or something like that, and make a 10-day episode out of it. But getting shut down, I was already like, how am I gonna, make this happen? And at this point, I'm assuming, well, I'm just stuck here until the 10 days is up. So I was just expecting that. I was, kind of like what happened in Labrador. I was just expecting I'm doing my thing, and it's miserable and it's awful and it's not the real kind of survival I want, but I'm there and I can't get out. So this was a situation I could not get out of. So once in a while I can walk out or I can radio out, but that's out of like 60 odd Survivorman episodes, maybe 4 times, 5 times at the most. But in this case, there was no out. And then all of a sudden along comes the ATVs with the crew, like, what are you guys doing here? I was like, well, they had been trapped by the weather. They had been in a very precarious situation, and they said that basically a big winter storm was coming in, and if they didn't get me out of there, that's it. They were not going to get me out of there at all. So they came in and said, we got to go. You got to end it. So I wrestled with it. We filmed that and everything, and I thought, how do I end this? Like, I want to be able to tell that story, but in the end, we just sort of settled with, let's just have me leaving and we'll end it there. But I wanted to tell the different story that from this moment on, after I shoot these scenes, there's me and the horses there. By the way, they helped me get back up on the horse so I could do this little outro of walking along with the horses. But right after this, we all had to make a mad scramble to get out of there. Many, many, many hours along the coast, trailing horses that were in ATVs. The ocean was coming in. We got to a point where we were driving our ATVs in, like, through the ocean water. It was coming up to the seats. It was just this, and then we ended up, we lost that battle. We didn't make it out. The ocean came in. It trapped us up against a cliff. So now we're up against a cliff with a couple of ATVs, a couple of horses, my crew, which was, I think, just Max and Laura, and then one or two of the gaucho guys, that was our guides, sort of thing. And we ended up having to climb a cliff straight up with our gear, like hand bombing the gear up because the ocean was coming in and we were trapped against the cliff. It was going to drown us. In the end, they had to leave the ATVs and the horses on a sort of a spot there where they hoped the ocean wouldn't take them away. I guess you could tell how high it was going to come up. And that ocean came in, completely submerged the ATVs, and was probably up to the horses' bellies the whole time that it was at high tide. And you got to think about waves. Those poor horses. I felt so bad. But they were like, we've done this before, kind of thing. I'm like, no, you haven't. But in any event, they were just like, it was their horses. So we had to climb out of a cliff to get out of there. And that's why Argentina, that was supposed to be a 10-day episode, ended up being the episode that you see here. I didn't feel like I could get 2 different episodes out of this. Now that leads me into a whole different problem. Now with the network is expecting 2 episodes and I've only got 1. They don't really care where I shoot the episodes. They didn't care if it was 10 days or 2 times 7 days in different, they didn't care. So, and speaking to film producers now, I would say I took it upon myself. This was my responsibility. So I invested and I turned around and I went and I shot an episode up in Temagami, Ontario, the bug-infested episode, we call it. That's the episode I went in mosquito season, which maybe I'll do that one next, to make up for that fact. But this was supposed to be 2 episodes. It ended up, and then I said, we can chop it into 2 episodes, but I don't want to. I think it's powerful if we show it all in one episode and just keep it confined, confined to this one episode, and we did. But that's what happened. After this scene right here, mad dash out, trapped by the ocean. The tide came in, trapped against a cliff, had to climb a cliff to get out of there. It was just crazy. There you go. That's Argentina. Argentina director's commentary, and I was looking at my list of different shows. I've got more coming up, guys. Lots more to do for you. If I take a look, well, there's still the rest of the Bigfoot series. But if I take a look at some of these, there's and there's Beyond Survival as well. Let's see. So here, I've got Survivorman and Son episodes. There's a bunch of those. Wow. When I went out with the Kane family ordeal in India, the Transylvanian Alps, the fan episode, 2 in the Tropics with Bob. There's just so many more yet to come, and I'm excited to do them. So there you go. Guys, remember, Christmas is coming up, and the Wild Harvest recipe book fits in a stocking really nicely. And don't forget my award-winning children's book, Wild Outside, with Christmas around the corner. Those make some pretty cool gifts, I think. So does the 20th anniversary package as well. But anyway, I digress. This is actually, you won't be seeing this on Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's just passed, but it is on Thanksgiving while I'm doing this. So happy belated Thanksgiving, and yet to come will be soon some Merry Christmases. So we'll talk soon, and I will see you next time, and I think I will do that Temagami mosquito-infested episode next. See you soon.